Hi, this is Professor Innes, and this is your module on George Berkeley. Um, you're still dealing with epistemology, and therefore you've got this problem that we have these knowledge claims, and this knowledge claim is based upon our mind being in contact with these ideas and claiming them to be a representation of what exists outside of our minds in the physical world, out there, as it were. Now, with George Berkeley, he rejects John Locke's materialism. In particular, he rejects this distinction between primary and secondary qualities. So straight away, he's putting forward an argument which quite clearly is unsatisfied and finds unsatisfactory the claims put forward by Locke, who Berkeley refers to as a realist. We might not have seen him as a realist, but he nonetheless is seen by Berkeley as a realist. So therefore what we have is the argument that for John Locke the world exists. We said it probably exists according to John Locke. For Berkeley, he thinks that Locke thinks the world does in fact exist. So we're saying to ourselves, this is Berkeley's position. We understand his rejection, and he's put forward a good argument that that distinction between the primary and secondary qualities is not a good one, and therefore we can't say that the world exists in a static state, at least according to primary qualities such as length, figure, size, and so forth. What Berkeley says is that we can't see or perceive these qualities, these primary qualities, other than through the secondary qualities. Therefore, if we only can see them through the secondary qualities, and the secondary qualities are held in doubt, therefore we must hold the primary qualities in doubt. So if you see a chair through its color and smell and all that stuff, then you must also hold in doubt those qualities which we perceive to be stable, such as his length and his figure. So therefore the whole thing is held in doubt. Nothing is to be seen as certain out there in the material world, says George Berkeley. So that is why he rejects that argument put forward by John Locke. And again, just in a nutshell here, he rejects the argument because John Locke says here that there is a distinction between primary and secondary qualities, and if there is a distinction, fair enough, but Berkeley says there isn't. Simply the case we perceive the primary qualities which are said to be held certain through the secondary qualities which are not held in certain. So it must be the case, therefore, if the secondary qualities are not certain, then the primary qualities must be uncertain as well. So therefore there's nothing certain. So that's the rejection of John Locke's argument. So Berkeley comes along and says basically the only thing we have access to are ideas in our minds, and these ideas are stimulated by the external world by all means, but there's still no guarantee that these ideas represent the external world. Now, as an epistemologist, Berkeley cannot just walk away and say, okay, all we have are ideas in the mind. He's got to create some situation whereby there's a certainty of the external world as such. At least these ideas exist independent of our minds. Not that there's a physical world out there necessarily, but definitely my idea that there's a screen in front of me exists. And that once I leave this office of mine, the screen still exists, because according to the skeptic, if I'm not here to perceive this screen, then it doesn't exist. Now, Berkeley doesn't want this situation, so therefore what we have is that I have a perception of ideas in my mind, and the idea of this screen is kept in being by there being this omniscient, this all-powerful being that sees everything at all times. Therefore, the screen is kept in the mind of God when I am not here. And by the fact it is here when I get back to my office later on, means that there must have been a God viewing it. So therefore, we have not only the case that there is continuous existence of the external world, but also we've proven the existence of God at the same time. So I've done that very quickly, but nonetheless that is Berkeley's argument. And of course it's total, well, could call it total nonsense, but anyway, it's basically flawed on the account that he has not proven the existence of God simply by saying that God exists by what God does. We presume that God is keeping things alive, therefore God exists. So it's a big presumption. It's a fallacious argument. It's a fallacy to say the least. And in that sense, we cannot accept it. We have to reject this fallacy argument totally. So in that sense, therefore, we've got an argument put forward by Bishop George Berkeley, and one which falls apart straight away. So I've done that quickly just to make sure we understand what it means, and again, it is a problematic argument indeed. Right, but it is complex in the sense that the argument is somewhat unbelievable to start with, but nonetheless, it doesn't work anyway because the argument doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. So hopefully that made sense. I cut it quick because with Berkeley's argument you've got to do that quickly, otherwise you just end up talking about it for 20 minutes and nobody's none the wiser. Okay, so keep that in mind, please. Before I go, hopefully our journal entries are starting to be a bit more productive and sensible. The first few weeks were not the best as far as the journal entries were concerned, but hopefully with me asking you direct questions about what you said, instead of setting assignments in the journals, will allow us to have a conversation. So reply back to me even by referring to my name, whichever name you want to use. Doctor, Professor, even my first name is perfectly acceptable. Whichever you want to use to get a conversation going, and you can start to ask questions about philosophy, as some of you have done already. Okay, probably best to keep it to 1 question per discussion, so we can focus upon particular points at that week or whenever, even if it's a general view about philosophy. So keep an eye on those journal entries, therefore, and we'll put them to good use. The journal entries are supposed to be functional; they're not just another exercise. They're supposed to actually have something which is different from a blog or a discussion board. So, okay, so let's keep those journal entries going, please, and we'll have a lot to discuss. Okay, so I'm going to finish it right there. So I'll speak to you online through the journals. Okay, speak to you soon. Bye-bye.